They say the plains remember what men would rather forget. Tonight, the wind dragged those memories across the hardpan. He rode in alone, leather and shadow against the dying sun. Hat low, coat gunmetal, boots dust white. Folks called him Cole Thatcher because a man needs a name, but the land called him by his debts. He hunted water because cattle die first and men follow. 2 dry summers weighed on him, and the bank's letter in his pocket rode like a thorn. He put a shovel to a patch his father swore was a spring, and steel rang against something that wasn't stone. It moved. It moaned. Cole froze. He dropped to his knees, clawed back soil with calloused fingers, and found fabric, then skin, warm and trembling. A face broke the surface, hair matted with grit, eyes wide enough to swallow the sky. He cupped air to her lips. "Easy now," he said. "Breathe." She coughed the grave out. Young, but her gaze carried years. He lifted her free and wrapped her in his coat. "Name?" he asked. "Lena," she rasped. Lena Crow. The name struck like a spur. The Crow spread sat north, run by 3 brothers whose money could buy any truth. Their daddy died 2 months back, and whiskey talk said grief turned those boys to wolves. "Who put you under?" Cole asked. "Kin," she said, a syllable between prayer and curse. He stared at the shallow scrape he'd taken for a spring. The dirt was soft because men with shovels had softened it. In his pocket the bank's letter burned mean, but not as mean as murder dressed as misfortune. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried. Her legs folded. He caught her and tipped his canteen. She drank like a hymn. "The sheriff," he said, "will ride." Her hand clamped his wrist. "No sheriff," she whispered. "Bradley drinks with Thomas Crow on Fridays. He won't hear me. Law here was a coat men tried on till it fit their trouble." Cole glanced west. The sun slid red behind low hills that once held rain. "They'll come back," Lena said. "They said if I breathed again, they'd fix it by sundown." He listened and heard truth approach. Distant hooves, faint but gathering. He lifted her to the horse with the care of a man who has known violence too long. "My cabin's a mile," he said. "Boards hold better than sand." They rode doubled, her small weight against his ribs. The prairie stretched wide, a lonely table set for hunger. "You ain't afraid of dying?" she asked. "No, ma'am," he said. "Just of dying forgotten." Silence scraped. When she spoke again, it was a door giving way. "They smothered my mama and papa," Lena said. "Said their hearts quit in sleep. I saw the pillow. I saw the hands. I kept quiet. I thought God would speak. God was busy." Cole, let the ache answer. Men had fought wars for less than a lie over the dead. But truth out here was thin as creek water in August. His cabin stood low among cottonwoods. The porch leaned like an old man's shoulder. He got Lena inside, bolted the door, and set her by the stove whose belly had forgotten flame. "Back room," he said. "Hide, and keep quiet unless I call your name." "They'll kill you," she said. "Then I'll be worth the bother." He checked the window and saw dust rising like a verdict. 3 riders, spaced like commas. He set the rifle by the jam, the pistol at his hip, and drew a breath that tasted of iron. They came into the yard wearing the afternoon like a stolen coat. Thomas Crow in front, jaw like a plowshare and eyes that smiled without moving the rest of his face. Marcus to his right, restless as a bad horse. James trailing, hungry, and mean the way boys get when they learn cruelty too young. "Afternoon, Thatcher," Thomas called. "Looking for our sister. Little thing ran off upset. You seen her?" Cole leaned on the post. "Been digging for water," he said. "Found nothing worth your time." Marcus nodded at the dust near the door. "Found footprints," he said. "Got small feet myself," Cole said. James rode around back, came up with a scrap of cloth caught on a splinter. He held it like a sermon. Dress fabric. Thomas's smile tired of pretending. He slid off his horse. Hand near his gun. "We're stepping inside," he said. "Family business." "This is my threshold," Cole said. "My say weighs more on it." "You sure about that math?" Thomas asked. From the back room, a board creaked. Silence pooled. Thomas's eyes moved to the door, then back to Cole. "Lena," Thomas called, sweet as poison. "Honey, you in there? Come on out now." Cole stepped off the post, and put himself where bullets would go first. No one here but me. Marcus set a boot on the step. Cole's palm brushed his revolver. He could draw and kill one and be killed by two. Hooves again, nearer, urgent, not three but two. You expecting company? Thomas asked. Trail runs past, Cole said. Two riders broke the cottonwoods and rolled into the yard, badges catching the last light. Deputy Marshal Eli Cutter and a younger man whose eyes still measured right from wrong. Everything slowed. Lena's hand on the backroom door. Thomas's fingers counting options. Cole's breath measuring the space between ruin and reprieve. Evening, Cutter said. Trouble. Thomas was the worried brother again. Just gathering our lamb, Marshal. Cutter's eyes found disturbed dirt, small prints, the scrap of cloth. They found the way. Cole stood like a wall. Lambs don't bury themselves, he said. The backroom latch lifted with a sound as soft as a prayer. Lena stepped into the doorway, pale but unbroken, dust on her cheeks like war paint under the moon, and the prairie held its breath. Cutter's hand hovered over his holster, but his voice stayed easy. Miss, Cutter said to Lena, you all right? She looked from the lawman to her brothers. Not yet. Thomas tipped his hat toward decency. She's grieving. Wandered off. Mr. Thatcher took her in. Cutter's eyes slid to Cole. That true. I dug for water, Cole said, and lifted her out a hole. Marcus laughed too loud. Ain't no graves here. Not one meant to last, Cole said. Cutter swung down. He knelt at the disturbed ground and pressed 2 fingers into the soil. It still held the heat of panic. Fresh, he said. Levi water. The young deputy poured a line that sank quick, dragging the surface down like a thirsty mouth. Cutter stood, eyes gone flint. Anyone want to say different? Thomas's smile quit pretending. Family business, Marshal. Law ought not to meddle. Law is what steps in when men forget family, Cutter said. James twitched like a half-cocked spring. Cole watched his hand. He knew boys tuned for sudden cruelty. In the doorway, Lena lifted her chin till it could cut glass. They killed Mama and Papa, she said. Smothered them. Today they tried to bury me for seeing it. Girl, Thomas said softly, you're saying words that don't come back. They came for me, Lena said. They'll come for anyone who helps me breathe. Cutter studied faces, measuring pride, fear, and the empty places where truth hides. We'll ride to town, he said. All of us. We'll sit with a judge. Thomas nodded, ready. Open road meant accidents. No, Cole said. Levi blinked. No. My place, Cole said. My rules till dawn. We hold here. At first light, we ride behind badges, not ahead of them. Cutter saw the same trap flicker like far lightning. He nodded. We hold. Thomas's jaw feathered. Marshal, you ain't got a jail out here. I've got a porch, Cutter said, and a rope with a bell if anyone crosses it wrong. He moved the horses into willow and wire, forced the crows to dismount. Levi hung a lantern where night couldn't hide a lie. Guns on the barrel, Cutter said. Thomas unbuckled slow, laying his revolver. Marcus thumped his down. James hesitated 1 heartbeat too long. Son, Cutter warned. James set his weapon beside the others. Cole followed suit, then opened his rifle bolt and left it by the door. Lena sat with a blanket around her shoulders, fingers worrying wool into fringe. Cole brewed coffee dark and poured tin cups. No sugar. Tell it, Cutter said. Lena did. Short sentences, hard facts. A pillow. A struggle. A boot heel scraping plank at midnight. Thomas's voice. We've been waiting long enough. Questions at dawn. The barn. Hands. The hill that used to hold springtime. Dirt in her teeth while the sky shut like a door. Cutter listened with his knuckles white on the table. Levi wrote, pencil stubbing paper like a blind man learning Braille. Thomas stared at Lena as if he could smother words with eyes. Marcus swallowed air. James shook and called it cold. When she finished, Cutter set his hat crown down, brim a ring around judgment. Miss Crow, he said, I can fetch a judge by midday. Between now and sunup, you'll be a candle in a wind. You understand me? I do, she said. Cole stepped to the porch. The country breathed silver. He watched the road. Cattle know the shape of wolves in the dark. So did he. Cutter joined him. You're not from nowhere. No, you carried a war out here. I carry what's left, Cole said. And I carry her now. Inside, Lena touched the lantern. Mama used to say light shames meanness, she said. She was right till she wasn't. You got kin besides these? Cutter asked. No, then you got us till you do. Hooves rose out of the night, measured and many. A purpose rode that rhythm. Thomas smiled for real. Friends, he said. Cutter's badge caught the light. You invite a choir? Men don't like lies about family, Thomas said. Men don't like graves used while lungs still work, Cole said. 3 riders slid from the dark and tied up without asking. Bartholomew Pike, a rancher who owed the Crows money and liked collecting with other men's courage, and 2 hands with eyes flat as coins. Evening, Pike said. Heard the girl took sick and started telling stories. Cutter moved so the lantern washed his face. You heard wrong. You're leaving. We're neighbors, Pike said. We come to help. You come to leave, Cutter said. Pike's palm rested near his holster. Marshal without a jail. Farmer with a porch. Sounds like no to me. Cole took the lantern down and hung it inside. The yard sank into shadow. Faces became their own. Marcus, Thomas murmured. Muscle bunched in Marcus's jaw. Cole felt the first shot arrive before it came, the way a man tastes rain seconds before it falls. Back room, Cole told Lena. I ain't hiding again, she said. Then kneel and pray, he said, which is hiding with God. The shot cracked the edge off quiet. Not a killer, just a fist on a door that's about to be kicked in. Cutter's gun was out before the echo died. Any man steps on that porch comes off it with holes. Pike laughed once. That a sermon? It's the law, Cutter said. Thomas lifted both hands. Gentlemen, the marshal wants calm. Do you? Pike asked him. Thomas looked at the door where Lena's shadow trembled. I want this finished. 2 words, and the night chose sides. Cole reached for the rifle he'd left open. He slid the bolt closed with a sound that made the prairie lean in. He planted his boots and remembered ground he'd bled for before peace forgot him. Marshal, he said, count 3. 1, Cutter said. Pike stepped. 2. Marcus reached. 3. The porch lit like noon out front. Gunfire peeled the night open. Sparks bit the dark like angry stars. The first bullet splintered the porch post, showering Cole's coat with pine and dust. Cutter fired back once, clean and deliberate. Pike's right-hand man dropped where he stood, lantern light glinting off the pistol that never cleared leather. The yard roared alive, hooves thrashing, guns barking, curses spitting through the smoke. Cole rolled behind a trough, thumbed 2 shells into his rifle, and fired. The second outlaw tumbled from his horse with a groan that faded before it hit the ground. Only Pike stayed upright, ducked behind a wagon wheel, shouting, You'll die for her lies. Cutter's voice cut through the chaos. Put it down, Pike. You're outnumbered. Pike laughed, that hard whiskey laugh born from greed and dust. You ain't counted right, Marshal. Thomas here's got more men coming. Cole felt his gut twist. Of course Thomas had called for help before riding out. Men who'd kill for land or silence, whichever paid better. The prairie could breed devils quicker than corn in June. He crawled to the porch, reloaded, eyes scanning the moonlit expanse. Then movement. James Crow, the youngest, slipped toward the back window, blade in hand. Cole swung his rifle and barked, Stop where you stand. James froze, trembling like a boy caught stealing apples. She's my sister, he said. Don't make me. Cole cut him off. You already made yourself, boy. When you put her in the ground. The boy's resolve broke, and he lunged anyway. Cole met him halfway. The fight was close, ugly, boots scuffing boards, grunts thick as thunder. The knife slashed air, then skin. Cole caught James's wrist, twisted till bone popped, and slammed him to the wall. The blade clattered useless. Inside, Lena screamed. Cole turned just in time to see Thomas shove open the door. His gun was up, eyes bright with the madness of a man whose lies were failing him. You should have stayed out of this, Thatcher, he roared. Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. He fired once. The shot threw Thomas backward into the doorway, where he hung for a moment before folding like a coat on a hook. Silence. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if giving the dead a moment to realize it. Cutter stood by the window, smoke curling from his revolver. Marcus lay bleeding near the corral, muttering prayers or curses, hard to tell which. Pike was gone, his horse dragging hoof prints into the desert beyond. Levi stepped out, face pale as frost. "It's over," he said. Cutter shook his head. "Not yet." The young deputy frowned. "You mean Pike?" "I mean truth," Cutter said. "Over's when justice is done." Inside, Lena knelt beside Thomas's body. Her tears came without sound, falling onto the boards that had once been her grave's reprieve. Cole approached, hat in hand. "He was blood," she said softly. "No matter what he did. Blood don't make a man," Cole said. "His choices do." She looked up at him then, eyes red but steady. "You think God'll forgive him?" "Maybe," he said, "but he'll take his time." They buried the Crow brothers at dawn, side by side in the same dust they once ruled. Cutter said the words plain and short, like a man who'd seen too much to waste syllables. When the sun climbed over the horizon, painting the prairie in fire and gold, Lena stood quiet beside the graves. "I thought the earth would swallow me twice," she whispered. "Once when they buried me, and again when I told the truth." Cole glanced toward the cabin, smoke curling gentle from the chimney. "You're still here," he said. "That's what truth buys." She turned to him. "What do you do now?" He didn't answer right away. The land stretched before him, empty but not lonely. "Fix the well," he said finally. "Maybe find water after all." Cutter saddled up, hat tipped low. "Town need testimony, Miss Crow. You ready?" Lena nodded. "I'm ready." Cole helped her mount his horse. She winced at the saddle's creak, but held her chin high. "You coming with us?" she asked. He watched the horizon, the long road east where law waited, and the longer one west where ghosts roamed freer. "Not yet," he said. "Got dirt to tend and promises to keep." Cutter understood. "You ride in when the rain does," he said. As the riders disappeared into the light, Cole stood alone on his porch, rifle across his arm. The wind carried smoke, gunpowder, and the faint sweetness of survival. He looked at the sky and muttered, half to himself, half to something bigger. "In this land," he said, "mercy rides slower than the wind." The sun climbed higher, and for the first time in years, it felt like it warmed him. The next evening came heavy with stillness, the kind that waits to see what men will do next. Cole sat on his porch again, hands raw from filling the grave that morning, mind sore from all the ghosts it stirred. The shovel leaned against the rail, dirt still clinging to its blade like dried blood. The land around him was wide and quiet, just the sigh of the wind rolling through dead grass and the lonely cry of a hawk circling high. A man could lose himself out here. A man could also find what was left of his soul. Inside, Lena slept fitfully in the back room. Cutter had left her there until the judge could send a wagon. But Cole knew the law moved slower than sin. He'd seen that truth too many times. He poured himself a shot of stale whiskey, stared at the horizon, and whispered to no one, "Ain't enough dust in Texas to bury what we've done." His horse stamped nervously. The prairie was holding its breath again. He knew that sound, the kind that comes before trouble. A shape appeared against the dying sun. One rider, long and lean, coat flapping like torn wings. Cole rose slow, hand brushing the pistol on his hip. When the rider came close, Cole saw the face. Bartholomew Pike, still breathing, still mean, though a fresh scar cut across his cheek. "Well, hell," Cole muttered. "Didn't think the buzzards left enough to ride." Pike smiled through cracked teeth. "You took my friends, Thatcher. You took my payday. You think that ends with a grave and a prayer." Cole said nothing. Words wouldn't change the wind that was about to blow. Pike dismounted, boots sinking deep into the dust. He walked with that slow swagger men used before a gunfight, testing the air like it might remember them. "The girl's alive," he said. "That ain't right. She's a Crow. Her daddy stole land that wasn't his, and her brothers paid for it. Now she's going to pay too." Cole's jaw tightened. "That girl's seen enough dirt for one lifetime." "Maybe," Pike said, "but she still breathes. And I got promises to keep to men in places you'll never see." Cole looked past him, at the empty sky bleeding into dusk. You could turn around and live, he said softly. Or you could draw and die. Seems a fair choice to me. Pike chuckled. You talk like a preacher with a gun. Cole spat in the dust. Ain't no preacher left in me. For a long moment, nothing moved. Even the wind forgot how to whisper. Then Pike's hand twitched. The world snapped into motion. Two guns spoke as one. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder off a mountain. When the echo faded, Pike lay still, hat beside him, eyes open to the sky he'd never see again. Cole's hand shook as he reloaded. The smell of powder clung to the air, old, familiar, bitter. He buried Pike beside the crows. No marker, just dust and silence. When he came back inside, Lena was sitting up on the edge of the bed, eyes wide. Was that trouble, Cole said. And it's done. She stared at him, her small hands folded in her lap like she was holding something fragile. You keep Sav on me, she whispered. Cole looked away. No, just keeping the world even, far as I can. She rose and came to stand beside him. The lamplight caught the bruise on her neck, the dirt still under her nails. What'll happen now? She asked. He sighed, voice low. Judge'll take your statement. Maybe hang what's left of the truth. You'll be free, Lena. Free to go wherever you got the will to. And you? She asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped to the window and looked out over the graves, 5 mounds soft under the moonlight. Somebody's got to stay, and remember, he said finally. Land don't forgive easy. Lena touched his sleeve, voice trembling. You could come with me. There's ranch work east. Folks say the river still runs there. Cole turned to her, half smiling. Maybe one day, but this place, he gestured to the endless plains, the worn porch, the empty corral. It's got pieces of me I ain't done reckoning with yet. She nodded slowly. Then all right, she said. Don't waste ink on a man like me. I will, she said softly. Somebody should. The next morning, Cutter came with 2 wagons, one for the bodies, one for Lena. He tipped his hat to Cole. Judge says he'll take her testimony first thing. You're welcome to ride along. Cole shook his head. Town's got law enough without me. Cutter studied him a moment. You did right here, Thatcher. Don't matter if it feels wrong. Cole nodded, though he didn't believe it. Cutter rode off with Lena, the wagon's creak fading down the long trail to civilization. When the dust settled, Cole was alone again. The silence crawled back, heavier now. He sat by the fire that night, staring into the embers until they looked like eyes. He whispered, You keep your promise, kid. Don't come back. The flames cracked in answer, sending sparks into the black. Each one was a ghost, of men, of choices, of the kind of mercy that always came too late. He poured one last drink, lifted it toward the window where the moon burned pale, and said, For the buried and the forgiven, if either of those still exist. Then he drank slow, the whiskey burning like confession. Outside, the wind picked up again, dragging dust and memory across the porch. And far away, thunder began to roll. Days passed like ghosts, slow, shapeless, and quiet. The prairie settled back into its old rhythm, but Cole Thatcher did not. Each morning he rose before the sun, fed the horses that weren't his, and fixed fences that no longer mattered. The cabin creaked in the wind, whispering the kind of loneliness only honest men understand. The Crow graves lay 100 yards from his porch. He built a fence around them out of habit, not mercy. He told himself it was to keep coyotes away, but truth was it kept him close to his guilt. By the 5th sunrise, dust rose on the horizon. Not lawmen, not outlaws, just a single wagon crawling toward the ranch like a tired thought. He watched it come, rifle resting across his knees. When the wheels stopped, Lena climbed down. She traded her torn dress for a blue cotton one that didn't belong in this wasteland. Her hair was braided, her eyes clearer now, but the desert still clung to her somehow. You rode a long way, Cole said, voice rough as gravel. I told you I'd write, she said, smiling faintly. Figured words weren't enough. He nodded toward the porch. Coffee's still bitter. They sat without talking. The wind rattled the window panes like fingers on a coffin lid. Finally, Lena spoke. Judge took my statement. They ruled it murder. The Crow lands to be sold. What's left after the debts? Cole nodded. And you? They offer me a place in town. Schoolhouse needs a helper. That suits you, he said. She hesitated, then added, they said I could keep a share of the money. Enough to start over somewhere green. Cole looked past her, toward the endless brown horizon. Ain't much green left in this world. Then maybe I'll plant some, she said softly. He smiled, the first real one in years. The air between them felt different now, like something born of sorrow and sunlight. He could see the strength she'd found, carved out of the cruelty she'd lived through. She wasn't the girl he'd dug out of the earth. She was something more now, something unbreakable. Lena turned her gaze toward the fence. You ever think they might have been sorry? She asked quietly. Cole followed her eyes to the graves. Men like that don't find time for sorry. But maybe the dirt forgives what heaven won't. She stood and walked to the fence, laid a wildflower between the headstones, and whispered something only the wind could hear. When she came back, tears glimmered, but her chin stayed high. They said you refused the reward, she said. Why? He shrugged. Didn't do it for money. Then why? He paused, searching the horizon for words big enough. Because once, someone buried me too. Not in dirt, just in shame. Figured digging one soul out might count for something. Lena studied him a long time, as if trying to memorize his face before the desert claimed it again. You ever gonna leave this place? He shook his head. Some men belong where the wind don't quit. I'm one of them. A silence passed between them, deep and kind. Then she said, if you ever change your mind, you'll find me near the river. Maybe with a garden. Maybe teaching kids to read. I'll keep that in mind, he said. If the dust don't take me first. She smiled through tears. You talk like a man already gone. He tipped his hat. Maybe I am. The sun dipped lower, bleeding gold across the horizon. Lena climbed back into the wagon. Goodbye, Cole. He nodded once. Ride easy, Miss Crow. The wagon rolled away, its creak fading into the endless distance. Cole stood there until the sound vanished, until the world was nothing but wind and silence again. Night came. The fire cracked. He took out the letter she'd left him, folded neat, sealed with care. He opened it slow, eyes tracing the delicate writing. You saved me when no one else would. If the world were kind, men like you would never be alone. But maybe the world's kindness lives in what you did. If you ever ride east, you'll find me where the river bends. I'll be waiting, just in case the wind ever rests. Lena Cole folded the letter, set it beside the whiskey bottle, and looked out the window. The stars burned like sparks above an ocean of dark. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried, mournful and free. He whispered to the night, guess I ain't the only one still awake. A soft wind came through the open door, carrying dust, the scent of rain, and the memory of a girl who'd crawled out of the grave. Cole Thatcher leaned back in his chair, boots crossed, hat tilted low. Outside, thunder grumbled over the horizon, slow, patient, like a promise that would take its time to arrive. And for the first time since the war, he let himself believe that maybe mercy still rode the same road as men. The lamp burned low. The wind sighed through the cabin, and the night kept its secrets. Weeks rolled by like tired wagons over cracked trails. The rains came late that spring, soft, uncertain, but enough to turn the prairie from dust to something almost living again. Cole Thatcher stayed where he'd always been, between yesterday and nowhere. He spent his days mending fences that no longer kept anything in, and his nights sitting by the dying fire, reading Lena's letter till the ink blurred from sweat and time. The cabin had grown quieter, though it never truly slept. The boards still whispered when the wind blew, as if the ghosts outside wanted to come in and warm their bones. Then one morning, the air changed. The clouds were thick and kind, heavy with water and remembrance. He saddled his horse, old Daisy, whose back had carried both burdens and bodies. He packed light, some jerky, a tin of coffee, and Lena's letter folded into his coat pocket. Come on, girl, he said softly. Let's go see if the world still remembers us. They rode east, toward the river she'd spoken of, the one that curved through green country and stories. Every mile felt like confession. The land healed itself faster than men ever could, grass pushing through the graves, wildflowers blooming where blood once dried. By the second day, he reached the ridge where the prairie broke into gentle valley. Below lay the river, wide, silver alive. He hadn't seen running water in months. It shimmered like forgiveness. Cole dismounted, let Daisy drink, and knelt at the bank. He cupped the cold water in his hands and tasted it. It wasn't sweet, but it was clean. For a long time, he just watched the current, its endless moving forward. He thought of Lena, her eyes the night she left, her words soft as prayer. He thought of her planting things that would live, while he stayed behind with the bones of men who didn't. From across the river, laughter drifted faintly, children's laughter. It carried like music in dry air. Then a voice, a woman's, gentle, patient, teaching. He stood, heart thudding slow and heavy. He followed the sound through a thicket of willows until the clearing opened up, a small schoolhouse, whitewashed, with a garden of wild sunflowers dancing in the breeze. And there she was, Lena Crow. Her hair was pinned back now, her dress clean and simple, her hands covered in chalk. A group of barefoot children sat before her on the porch steps, repeating words she wrote on a slate. She laughed when they stumbled, a sound so pure it almost broke him. Cole stood by the fence and watched. He didn't speak, didn't move. The years of dust between them sat heavy on his tongue. Finally, she looked up. Their eyes met. She froze for a heartbeat, then smiled, slow, warm, knowing. "Well," she said softly, walking toward him. Guess the wind finally rested. He tipped his hat. Didn't have much choice. "You wrote about this place. And you found it," she said. "After all this time." Didn't know where else to go. She studied him, the gray in his beard, the weight in his shoulders, the scars that had faded but not forgotten. "You came a long way for a man who swore he'd never leave. Turns out ghosts don't stay buried if the rain keeps falling." She smiled, a sad kind of smile. "You look tired, Cole." "I am. But I'm here." They stood in silence a while. The children's laughter faded into the hum of the river, the world softer for a moment. "You teaching them letters?" he asked. "And stories," she said. "Ones with better endings." "Good," he said. "The world needs those." She reached out, brushed the dust from his coat sleeve. "You staying this time?" He looked out across the valley. Green fields, clean sky, a river that didn't forget. For once, the horizon didn't look so lonely. "Maybe," he said quietly, "if you'll have me." "I already do," she whispered. He smiled then, not the weary kind he'd worn for years, but something real, something unbroken. The kind of smile that belonged to a man who'd finally stopped running. The children gathered around, curious about the stranger with the weathered face and the quiet eyes. Lena laughed and introduced him. "This is Mr. Thatcher," she said. "He's a man who once found water where there wasn't any." The children giggled. Cole chuckled softly. "Ain't sure I found it," he said. "Just dug deep enough to meet what was already there." The day stretched long, warm, and full. Cole fixed a fence post near the garden, told stories about horses and storms, and for the first time in years, he felt the sun without flinching. As dusk fell, Lena walked him to the porch. The air smelled of rain and earth, of beginnings. "You ever think about the others?" she asked. "Every day," he said, "but I reckon the best way to honor the dead is to live like they're watching." She nodded. "Then stay. Help me build something good here." He looked out at the children chasing fireflies, at the river glimmering under twilight. His voice came out like a prayer. "Yeah, I reckon I can do that." The night folded around them, soft and forgiving. Crickets sang in the tall grass. Somewhere out west, thunder murmured again, far and faint. Not a threat this time, just a memory. Cole took off his hat, held it over his heart, and whispered. Maybe mercy finally caught up. Lena smiled, eyes bright beneath the stars. "Told you the wind would rest someday." He looked at her, then the river, then the sky. "Guess it did," he said. The wind moved gently through the willows, carrying the scent of rain, wildflowers, and redemption. And in that quiet corner of the Old West, where ghosts once rode and graves once called, two souls finally found peace. Section 7. The last sunset years passed quietly on that little stretch of river. The schoolhouse grew, the garden widened, and the children who once chased fireflies learned to read, to dream, to build. Cole Thatcher stayed, though he never planned to. Some seasons he worked the fields, others he rode out to help neighbors mend fences or track lost cattle. Folks came to know him as the man who said little but always showed up when needed. Lena grew into something the prairie had never known: steady light. She taught through droughts and floods, through loss and laughter, her words planting more than seeds in young minds. Sometimes she'd look across the river at Cole's cabin, smoke rising thin and straight, and smile at the thought that maybe the West hadn't taken everything after all. By the 10th year, his beard had gone silver and his hands slower. The ghosts of the old days had softened, but never gone. They lingered in the corners of his nights, whispering in the crackle of the fire. He'd grown used to them, even grateful. The past, he'd learned, was just another kind of weather. You don't fight it, you endure it. One evening, the sky turned the color of bruised peaches. A storm gathered far out west, but it moved slow, lazy as an old memory. Cole sat by the riverbank, boots sunk in mud, rifle across his lap more out of habit than need. Lena joined him, a shawl around her shoulders. She didn't speak at first. She didn't need to. "Kids done gone home?" he asked after a while. "They did. Left me with their questions. About the usual. Why the sky changes. Why some folks leave and some stay." He chuckled softly. "You tell him." I told him the sky don't change. It just keeps showing us a different truth. He nodded. Sounds like something I might have believed once. The wind turned cool, brushing the tall grass in long silver waves. Across the water, the setting sun caught the windows of the schoolhouse, turning them to fire. For a heartbeat, it looked like the building itself burned with life. Lena watched him quietly. "You ever regret staying?" He shook his head. "No. Regrets for men who think they got time left to fix things." "You fixed plenty, Cole." He smiled at that. An old man's smile, gentle and tired. "Maybe. Or maybe I just stopped breaking things." She laid her hand on his arm. It trembled slightly beneath her touch. "You kept your promise," she said. "You found peace." He looked toward the far horizon, where the sun bled into the earth. "Peace ain't something a man finds," he said softly. "It's something that finds him when he finally quits running." A long silence settled between them, deep and holy. The world had gone still except for the hum of cicadas and the slow bend of the river. Then Cole spoke again, voice low, almost himself. "When I first dug you out of that grave, I figured I was savant a life. Took me near 20 years to learn I was savant my own." Lena's eyes shone wet in the dying light. "You did more than that," she whispered. "You gave this place a story that ends right." He chuckled, the sound brittle but warm. "Ain't many of those left." The thunder rolled closer, soft and slow. The first raindrops began to fall, gentle, cool, forgiving. Cole tilted his head back and let them find his face. "Smells like the world's new again," he said. "It is," Lena replied. When the rain grew steadier, she took his hat off and held it in her lap. His gray hair clung to his forehead, but he didn't move. His eyes followed the river's curve until it disappeared into the mist. "Lena," he said finally. "Yes. If I don't wake come morning, don't bury me with the crows. Put me up by the ridge, where I can still hear the water." She gripped his hand tighter. "You'll see another morning, old man." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but just in case." They sat there until the rain turned to a curtain of silver. The storm never turned violent, just steady, cleansing. When the wind finally eased, night spread across the prairie. By dawn, the rain had stopped. The world smelled of wet earth and rebirth. Lena found him still sitting where the night had left him, his hands slack, his face calm. The river whispered beside him, carrying bits of sunlight on its skin. She didn't cry right away. She just stood there, watching him, her heart breaking and mending in the same breath. Then she whispered, Rest easy, cowboy. You kept your promise. They buried Cole Thatcher on the ridge above the river. The school children came, hats in hand, their teacher weeping quietly as the preacher spoke. When the final prayer was done, the sky broke open once more, not with thunder, but light. Years later, travelers passing through the valley would stop by that grave. Some said at dusk they could still hear a man's voice carried on the wind, low and steady. In the desert, mercy rides slower than the wind, but it rides just the same. And beneath that wide, unending Texas sky, the legend of Cole Thatcher, the man who dug truth from the grave and found peace at the river, lived on like the land itself, vast, rough, and eternal. The story of Cole Thatcher faded into the land the same way all great Western tales do, not with thunder, but with wind. Folks in the valley spoke of him like he was carved into the earth itself, a man who had seen too much dying to still believe in redemption, yet found it anyway in the eyes of a girl he pulled from the grave. Time moved on, as it always does. The schoolhouse by the river turned to a church, then to dust, and later to a monument where children came to learn about the days when men settled their debts in lead and silence. No one remembered the exact date Cole Thatcher rode into that country, but everyone remembered how he left it, sitting by the river, watching the rain wash away the blood of the past. They said that when the storms came through each spring, a single rider could be seen on the ridge above the riverbank, hat low, coat dark, his horse standing still as the stones around him. The old-timers called it a ghost, the young called it story. But Lena, when she grew old and gray herself, never corrected either one. She'd just smile and say, "Some souls don't wander. They just watch." The legend of Cole Thatcher became something more than history. It became a prayer whispered by drifters who'd lost their way, by widows who still set two plates at the table, by young cowhands who believed decency still mattered, even in a land built on dust and graves. Because what Cole Thatcher left behind wasn't wealth or fame or fear. It was proof that even in a world that forgot how to forgive, one man's mercy could still change the shape of it. And as the years rolled on, folks told the tale the same way the wind carries sand. Gentle, endless, half-remembered but never gone. They say the West was tamed by bullets, the storytellers would whisper, but it was kept alive by the hearts that refused to turn cold. And when the sun fell behind ridges and the river glowed like silver fire, you could almost hear him, the echo of a shovel in dry earth, the soft creak of leather, and that low, steady voice carried by the Texas wind. In the desert, mercy rides slower than the wind, but it rides just the same.